Lead developer fears potential backlash from coworker after a college incident, considering whether to disclose the past to human resources. I, 34 male, am a lead developer on a team of mid-sized SaaS company that is around 100 or so employees. Basically, we are large enough that there are employees we can see, recognize, but not necessarily know their names. Recently, we had a new hire, Krista 33F, who joined the PM part of the project I'm working on. I have a history with Krista from college. In college I was a lot more in my own shell, I didn't really treat myself well, and was very much the introverted nerd, down to bad posture and poor fashion sense. Krista, she did have quite a few friends in college, but at least in my view she wasn't super popular, but she was well liked and was conventionally attractive. We shared a few classes together and one day asked me for some help on an assignment. I helped her on it and we talked, and from the sound of things, she seemed genuinely friendly to me. I helped her on a few more assignments and finally she asked me if I wanted to meet her after class at a coffee shop and talk. I said sure, and when I got there, Krista was nowhere in sight. I waited about 20 minutes before I called her. She answered and started laughing, and I heard several other voices laughing, Krista saying something like, "Why would I want to date a fat loser like you?" Looked out the front window of the shop and saw one of Krista's friends holding up her camera phone and it looked like she was recording. Next few weeks there were jokes about me, flyers with my face from the coffee shop vid plastered up with creep in bold letters on top. Kept my head down, and within a month the next big thing popped up on campus and I was forgotten. Didn't stop Krista and her friends from going ew. Creep. When they saw me, but I guess for the rest of the campus it got old, so I never got accused of anything, or even really ostracized by the rest of the student body. After college, I did learn about self-care a bit better, plus I usually am with other programmers so I really don't stand out as a social outcast. When Krista was introduced to our team, I don't think she recognized me, and it's only been a week, but I want to know if bringing up the college incident is even worth it for HR. Most of my rational brain really wants to just let this go, treat Krista as a new person, and get on with me, but I have a small fear that she might tell a skewed version of the college events and sour the team I'm on against me, so I should at least disclose to HR so in case she does start telling tales I have recourse. Reddit, Wibta, if I told HR about my past with Krista? Update 1. Yesterday some things happened, some bad, mostly good. There were mixed responses, most telling me to tell, but one HR professional saying I shouldn't. Due to the mixed messaging, I did consult a local employment lawyer. The lawyer told me that I should make HR aware of the past I have with Krista, but make it clear that there was never anything disciplinary acted upon me in college. He asked if my job had a copy of my transcript, and I verified that it did. Lawyer asked if there were any third parties that would verify the harassment and see if I could get their names and contact details if needed. I knew 2 people back in college that I still had on my LinkedIn and was certain they would tell the truth, so we were good there. Lawyer told me to just request a meeting with HR and my supervisor, say there was a past with Krista, there was never any charges or disciplinary action, and I have 2 witnesses if they ever need verification. So that was what I did. Friday morning I came into the office and sent HR and my supervisor an email requesting a formal meeting at 10 a.m. My supervisor came to my desk and asked if everything was okay, and wanted to make sure I was happy. I told him everything was fine, I wasn't leaving, and it wasn't anything with him or the team. He seemed relieved and by 10 a.m., we rolled into the conference room with the HR officer. I thanked them both for taking time out of their day to meet me, and then I did as my lawyer instructed. I said that the new project manager, Krista, was someone I went to college with, she participated in harassment of me in college, detailed how I never had any charges or disciplinary action, and that I had 2 independent witnesses that saw the harassment and gave their contact info. My supervisor seemed shocked and the HR officer went through the info I gave her for a minute and then the 2 of them talked for a minute. Finally, Krista was called in. When Krista walked into the conference room and saw me, HR, and the team supervisor, she seemed shocked. HR started with something like, "We have been told you 2 have a past." Krista sat down and looked pretty shocked throughout. She did admit to the bullying, but tried to reframe it as a misunderstanding repeatedly. She never outright said what the bullying was, but then she was told that since this was an incident in both our pasts that nobody once brought up again, that it should stay dead. HR made it clear that this is not to be a funny watercooler story to share. Krista and I both agreed to that, but Krista still looked shaken. Noon was coming up right when the meeting was wrapping up. My supervisor and HR again reiterated, neither of us is to breathe a word about the college incident. We're professionals, and we're here to do a job. I went to the break room for lunch, and actually I felt like my appetite has finally returned. The last few days were stress-starving me, to be honest. I sat at a table with the rest of the development team and we started eating. Halfway through my sandwich, another coworker, Sandy 30F, came by and said, "So I heard an interesting story yesterday about you and Krista," with a big grin on her face. She didn't get further back, as my supervisor was at our table, stood up, pointed at Sandy, and across the room at Krista and said, "You too." Conference room. Now. I wasn't privy to what happened in the conference room, but I did see the HR officer go into the room 2 minutes later, looking pretty pissed and with a mustard stain on her shirt. I guess she got the call and was interrupted during lunch. Not sure what went on. The rest of my team asked what that was. I said I have no idea and just kept eating. 5 minutes later, 2 more coworkers on other parts of the project were brought into the conference room. Lunch ended and we went back to work, but speculation was high. It wasn't until 3 that the conference room finally emptied. Krista looked like she was crying and the others that were in the room with her seemed to treat her quite coldly. Not sure what this will mean, but it appears for now, Krista is still working here. But I appreciate the lengths HR and my supervisor are taking to ensure this won't blow up further. Update 2. Monday wasn't a shit show, so that was good. My supervisor and the HR officer did bring everyone on the team into the big conference room, for the HR officer said that we are a professional company, and while we do like to have fun, there are company outings like golf, bowling, main event, we are to be strictly professional and not gossip about other coworkers' personal lives. Sandy and the 2 other coworkers who were brought into the conference room Friday looked pretty ashamed during this. Krista was sitting at the other end of the conference room table and there seemed to be a noticeable distance between her and the other employees. My supervisor said he wants to consider this matter closed and for us to get back to offering great solutions to our clients. Everyone filed out of the conference room and went back to work. Lunch on Monday was pretty tense, but Tuesday management had a local Mexican place bring in a Taco Tuesday for us, and the mood improved considerably. I don't gossip, but I did hear murmurs that Krista is now on her final warning and put on a performance improvement plan, all within her first 2 weeks. Not sure how true these rumors are, but with how isolated Krista now appears to be to the rest of the team, it is clear that everyone else is not willing to socialize with her beyond their work functions. I considered this matter closed myself, and if Krista worked hard and got her redemption arc, I'd have been fine with it. But then last night happened. Not sure where Krista got my address, but she was outside my house last night, and luckily my doorbell camera caught it, so I can pretty accurately transcribe it. She rung and asked if we could talk. I said through the digital doorbell there was nothing to talk about, and she better leave because this is now harassment. She pleaded for me to come outside and discuss it. I declined and emphasized she's not welcome. She then said she had a crush on me in college, that her friends found out she asked me to coffee and pressured her to turn it into a harassment campaign, and she was afraid of them disowning her for liking a guy like me. Guys, I wanted to laugh so fucking hard. I was socially awkward back in college, but even I knew this was bullshit. Hell, I wasn't even interested in Krista for a date, I thought she wanted to be my friend. I told her that I didn't care what she has to say, she has to leave. She told me I could just ask Sandy what she told her and it would clear this all up. I declined and said that this matter in the office is closed. Krista finally made an exaggerated sigh and walked off. I took the video recording from the doorbell and sent it to the employment lawyer and will give it to my supervisor and HR today. I will be shocked if she will last longer than this Friday now. Krista is fired. I didn't even have to send HR the doorbell cam vid, but I did send it to the lawyer I was talking to. Lawyer is drafting a cease and desist and potentially a restraining order if needed. Krista somehow got my address from someone in IT. The IT new hire is suspended because of this data breach and everyone got a memo about data security yesterday morning, including the usual about phishing scams. Krista's desk was empty when I came in yesterday morning, and since I'm taking the necessary legal steps, I'm considering this matter closed. _commenter_, are you the same physically as you were in college? Did you have a glow up at all? Did you talk to Sandy about it? I think now that Krista is gone, she'll tell you the truth about what she really said. _op_, I'll answer I lost weight. I do nightly walks. I'm not ripped or shredded or any of the 50 adjectives people use. I also dress a little better. Nothing like designer clothing, just newer slacks and button-up shirts that fit me. Wouldn't consider it a glow-up, just learning self-care. No, not going to talk to Sandy about it either. I have no idea what sort of punishment was given to Krista, and the stuff like the final warning and PIP was all rumors. The IT person on suspension, that is true, and from the sounds of it it could have been something as simple as him forgetting to lock his screen when he went to take a pee. Details aren't shared, and the only thing we are hearing is unsubstantiated rumors. Plus, I'd think it's bad form to ask HR, hey, can you tell me how you are punishing everyone that could have remotely crossed me? I just want my workplace to be normal again. Update 3. Krista did show up at my front door one more time. Called the cops, she was removed but not arrested, since she didn't technically do anything yet. Lawyer served her with the cease and desist, and it has been communicated to me that she understands. Work is almost back to normal. No one wants to talk about Krista anymore. I consider this truly resolved now. I am not the original inal poster. Please don't contact or comment on linked post story 2. I fell asleep in my roommate's bed because I was sick and my girlfriend broke up with me. My girlfriend Celine, 20F, and I, 21M, have been dating for about 7 months now, but I had feelings for her for like 3 years beforehand. I have also been sharing a flat with 2 other girls and 1 other guy. One of the girls is Kaya, and we're pretty good friends. As it just so happens, Celine's ex cheated on her with Kaya. Kaya hadn't known they were together at the time. So when I first brought Celine over to my place earlier into our relationship, she told me about what had happened. I realized then that things would be messy and I asked Celine if this was a deal breaker for her, but she said she wasn't sure as she was aware that Kaya didn't realize she was facilitating cheating. The next day, Celine said she thought it over and that she held no resentment towards Kaya but was insecure about herself and felt uneasy that we lived in the same house. We both agreed to continue with the relationship and set our boundaries. One of them was that Kaya and I won't sleep over in each other's rooms anymore. We used to have movie nights on Fridays. Kaya's room was the only room with a TV in my flat, and I'd sometimes fall asleep in her room during movie nights. Everything was platonic and I told Celine about this. Let's move to the present time where our relationship is like a fairy tale. Being with Celine is pretty awesome. But my exams are coming up soon, and because I'm horribly underprepared, I needed to lock in. So I told Celine I would have to be a bit selfish and wouldn't be able to spend time with her or have much communication till they're done. For the past 3 weeks, my life has been, wake up, spend the entire day/night at the library, then come home to sleep for like 5 to 6 hours, then go study again. It's a horrible routine and I feel like a zombie, but I have too much content to catch up on and not enough me. I must also admit that I've not been in contact with Celine all that often. We only talked twice on FaceTime and texted very little. She tried initiating but I had my phone shut off while studying and only replied when I left the library. On our second call she said she felt neglected and it was really starting to get to her and she wanted to spend some time together. I apologized, told her I missed her too and that she could come over to spend the night. But she came about an hour later than she was supposed to and I fell asleep by then. She still stayed the night, but the next morning I felt that she was upset I fell asleep. Then I got really sick 3 days ago. I threw up at the library and asked Kaya to come pick me up. My other roommates are out of town, and Celine would have taken too long to get there. When I got into bed, I threw up all over my sheets. At this point, my memory of what happens is foggy. I was very drowsy and not thinking straight. Rather than cleaning up and setting new sheets, I texted Celine I was very sick and had vomited over my bed and asked if I could sleep over at hers. I got no reply, so I went downstairs and slept on the couch. When I woke up the next morning, I was asleep on Kaya's bed shirtless. I had no clue how I got here. But Celine came to check up on me, and walked in on me like this. This was when I woke up, and Celine was very upset. She yelled, "How could you?" and before I had chance to say anything, she left. Kaya told me that when she saw me asleep on the couch, she offered to let me sleep on her bed instead. I have no recollection of this. I probably took my shirt off because I felt hot at some point during the night. She also said she slept on the couch and we didn't share the bed. I've been trying to reach out to Celine but she blocked my number, WhatsApp, Insta. We have 2 mutual friends but they both haven't replied to any of my texts. My fever died down yesterday night, so I went to Celine's to clarify the situation. But her roommate said she wasn't going to talk and made me leave. This whole situation just feels so horrible. I love the relationship that I have/had with Celine and the fact that it's probably over makes me feel so distraught. I also reflected over how I've been recently and I realized that a lot of blame goes on me. My exams aren't a reason to just completely shut myself out of my relationship and I need to work on being able to juggle life and studies at the same time. Other than her finding me asleep on Kaya's bed, she probably had a lot of animosity and upset amalgamating over the last 3 weeks of me not being in contact. It's painful knowing I made a very unnecessary decision and had I put in more effort, it wouldn't have cost me a great person out of my life. Update 1. I'll start by saying now that this post will be very long but will add little to nothing new. The most expected outcome is what happened. The reason I'm posting this is because I saw Celine for the final time a couple days ago, and I also want to clear the air on some matters. For the sake of tracking time, let's call day 1 the day Celine broke up with me. Day 4 was when my initial post was published. I sat my final exam at day 7, and didn't actually check up on the post at all till day 8. I was very shocked reading the comments. To be blatantly honest, I wasn't expecting like 1,000 people calling me a huge bellend. I knew I made a mistake, but in my head, I thought I was a good person. You know how you just kinda perceive yourself to always try and do things with a good intention, so you think you can't ever be a bad person? If that makes sense. But reading the post opened up my perspective and made me realize that the relationship was not salvageable, and also gave me depth on the hurt I caused Celine. I shattered her trust completely and was just not a good boyfriend for an entire month leading to the breakup. So, I just didn't contact her. As I'll mention later on, I was not in a good headspace and I distanced myself because I was an even bigger ass than I let on previously. On day 12, she messaged me to ask for her iPad back. She'd let me borrow it for my notes. We last met on day 15 when she came to collect it, among other things. We were both silent the whole time she was there, which must have only been like 5 minutes or so. She returned some of my stuff I'd left in her apartment, and when she was about to leave, I told her I was sorry. She said okay. I said I never meant to hurt her. She, again, just said okay. I figured nothing I could say was the right thing at this point and we said goodbye. So like I said, the very expected outcome occurred. I can't lie and say that I'm instantaneously a better person now, I'm not. I want to be better but I can't become a better person in a couple of weeks and will need to really work on my character in general. As for Celine, I can only just pray and wish for the best for her. I'm going to answer some of the main questions that people had. I never went into the full depth of the story because there is a lot of context behind it all and I just never expected the post to reach so many people. Yes. I told her the day Celine and I discussed our boundaries. She seemed to be very understanding and we both kept distance since. It was from dehydration. On day 1, I went to the hospital at noon because my condition wasn't getting any better. I had a temperature of 104 and a blood test showed I was severely dehydrated, and I was put on a drip. None of this was mentioned because I never expected this to be a matter of criticism and thought very ill sufficed for it in my previous post. This is the question which needs a lot of context to understand, and I'll do my best to provide it now. I'm Indian, and my father is very similar to those strict Indian dads that you'll often see portrayed in movies. Take every Indian dad stereotype and you'll get my dad. He's in the military and is about as strict as Ma, and as you can imagine. He tried forcing me to join the army. I wanted to choose my own career path, which was in computer science, and we had a huge rift occur between us because of it. I moved from India to the UK for my studies, and one of the only reasons he agreed to pay for my tuition fees was because A, the university I'd gotten into is prestigious, so he was happy with that, and B, he had a way to monitor my grades and could use this as leverage to make me study harder. In year 1, I did not do so splendidly. I finished with a grade average of 63%, which although is like the median score, upset my dad a lot. He got extremely physical and smacked me in the face a few times, and I had some bruises after. He also threatened to not pay for my final year if I didn't get an average of 70% this year, which would mean that the entire 2 years I've spent here would go to waste. I'm an international student, so I can't get a loan either. Furthermore, I did really bad on my summatives earlier in the year. I got a 41 on an exam worth 13% of my entire grade, and a 52 and 59 on 2 others worth 6% each. Celine also knows everything about my dad. We had a whole conversation before I went absent in our relationship, where I told her I was very far behind on my studies and was afraid of the consequences this would cause. We agreed I should try and study as much as I can till my exams were over, and she said she'd be fine with being in contact less often. Very simply put, I was a bad boyfriend. This is going to sound awful, but I think a part of me just didn't want to have to deal with being in a relationship. I was overwhelmed and it felt like a burden having to talk to someone. I completely acknowledge how horrible that is of me to even think. When I had those thoughts, I just downplayed them and let myself believe it was just me being cranky. Anyway, there's just never an excuse to go weeks without talking to your GF, and I was an asshole for doing that. However, I never, under any circumstances, had any intentions of cheating on her. I didn't want to deal with anyone, period, and so I didn't want to be around Kaya either. I mention this because a lot of people speculated that Kaya and I had something going on, which isn't the case. I just wanted to be alone till my exams were over. I asked her, and she said the following: I was on my way out to an overnight study session, which meant no one would be home, so I thought you might as well sleep on my bed then. I didn't think it would be such a big deal considering how bad of a condition you were in. I thought Celine would understand. I didn't get in the bed when I got home. I slept on the couch. I could not sleep in my roommate's bed because they were out of town and locked their rooms. Kaya throws parties every once in a while, so they lock their rooms in case. I think that's as much as I can say about this now. There's not a great deal more to add rather than an apology to those who read all of this and still aren't content with my answers. As for what happens next, I don't think I'll be sprinting into a new relationship anytime soon. I'm long overdue some self-reflection, and along with trying to enjoy my summer holidays, I hope I can figure myself out and try and do better from now on. In her situation, I would have stripped your bed so the sick wouldn't fester and throw it in the washer. I would have checked in that you didn't need to go to the hospital, put out something to drink and some painkillers. I would have contacted Celine and let her know how you were doing, and that you would probably really appreciate it if she dropped by to check in on you. No boundaries disrespected. I don't risk getting sick.